there's a reason why we are starting with Goryani Mandli, because Goryani Mandli happens to be, like I said, Maushmi runs it with her sister-in-law. They're a direct descendant of the person who started it exactly 100 years ago on Gokulashtami. And this store itself is, there are some places which have both the history as well as the context of the history. This store is just one of those. And it didn't start here. They were earlier there in the earlier place that burned down. This place, but it was rebuilt up, right? Yeah. So, but as such, when we look at their historical, so a bit about Goryani Mandli before I get into the fabrics, right? Goryani Mandli was started by a gentleman who initially started putting in a lot of khadi stuff. In that sense, it also was a part of a movement where there were local entrepreneurs that were moving in. Though on their own, they would actually, if we look at it as a classification, they would be identified as a Swadeshi store, but they themselves do not identify that, even though they record in their own history that Mahatma Gandhi visited this place because he was told about the khadi parchas, he was told about the khadi topis that were in existence. It is also recorded that they had a longish history of people buying stuff during the Quit India movement. And in terms, they also have had their repository of now being a place where you can get all, your Maratha related religious or festive gear that is there. Now, coming back to when we are looking at the textile evolution of the Marathas, right? Please keep in mind, like I said, Pune was a small place during the Bhosle regime before Shivaji came in, before the Peshwas came in. And when the Peshwas came in and they were, and that's why I was introducing the element of the tax collection that they could get out of the Mughal court, was because once they had the money, they realized that they needed to also set up and make it a vibrant court. And in a lot of the senses, they were influenced by the Mughals because they talked about a Hindu Padshahi. And the very fact that there should be a Padshah is itself a concept that is not exactly rooted in the cultural milieu of, when you look at the Dakhan in that sense, or the Western Indian context in that sense. So they were influenced by that. They wanted to set up, so they realized that they needed to bring in. So what they did was also Pune became, a center because cotton growing areas of Vidarbha are very close. You look at the south, you had the weavers that came in from the south. So the raw material was available. There were weavers that were gotten from all centers of the south. I'm talking about people coming in all the way from Andhra Pradesh. I'm talking about people coming in from Belgaum, Karnataka, all of those places, Tamil Nadu. These are places where they did get their weavers in from. And along with that, those weavers gotten their design sensibilities. And then there is the ruling class, which comes in with its own design sensibilities. So it is recorded, if you look at the Gazette, it is actually recorded that, there were two types. One, when the weaver basically wove something and put it in a shop. The second was when there were people who would ask for particular customizations. Now, in that customization, also you see that, one is when you start with the fact that because in the Hindu way of things, there is what is known as a sanskar, right? So the sanskar starts right from, and what is a sanskar? A sanskar is a sacrament. So you go through all of those. It's a different matter of fact that after the sanskar of Vivah, there is only Mukhagni. It's quite ironic in that sense.
So what is Vivah?
Vivah, after the sacrament of marriage, the only sacrament you can have is death. Mukhagni is when you die. Right? So in any case, in terms of the sacrament, so the sacramental clothes were different. So it would start from very early. It would start with, we have here, it would start with actually for the little children that would come in. And for little children, there was, so this is the dhoti, that little gown that the children wear. The parkar.
This is for boys.
This is kunchi. So it would start with the kunchi. Okay. Now the reason I start with the kunchi is for two this thing. One, it is, it's like it's a cloak for a little baby. But the kunchi is often made in cloth. It's actually most of the kunchis that you see outside of silk would actually come in two categories. The mashru fabric and the himru fabric. The difference between mashru and himru was only about the amount of silk that was mixed. So basically when you're looking at mashru had a bit of cotton and silk, which is what your khana fabric today is. The khana fabric or the khud fabric, whichever way you would like to say. And then you had Himru, which was pure silk, which was used by the ruling class. Now this Mashru and Himru classification itself is also something that derives its origins from weaving traditions of Varanasi, because it takes from brocade. Brocade itself was something that was brought in during the Mughal period, wherein you had very rich metal which was woven into cloth. Metal being woven into cloth is something that has happened in India for a long time, but not at the way the brocade makes it, wherein you can't wear it, right? But in Pune, what they did was they evolved the Mashru and the Himru, where the Mashru was taken in by a particular class, the Himru was taken in by a particular class, because remember again, the Peshwas were practical, they had to go out for wars, they had to go out for their collection, they were not administering these areas. So it was also practical in that sense. Then it moved to the child. In terms of children, the women typically wore a pakhar, little girls wore the pakhar polki, parkar polki, and so this is what they wore, and the boys wore a little dhotar and a mandi. That is, and typically boys did not even wear mostly dhotar, they ran around quite a bit without that. The girls were wearing these double set. When you look at this, you see this is a classic sign of south of the Vindhyas children's clothing across board, whether it is the chaniya choli of Gujarat, or you look at the half saris that are in existence, all of them actually follow this pattern. The other thing is about the design part of it. Now in terms of the design, please remember, I mean, a lot of the times you feel, why do the borders come in? Okay, borders itself is pretty much a hallmark of the fact that there are free flowing fabrics. Now if there is no border into a fabric, how do you weigh it down? How does it fall in? So that is why you have borders, and with borders is where you see a lot of the design amalgamation. The border designs that we typically see are all derived from the southern Indian influence. So you can have various things. Now this is, so you have this which is known as a Rudraksh border, simply because it looks like a Rudraksh. Then you have what is a very local design element, which is actually today most places people call it the temple border. There is nothing called the temple border. If you ask the weaver will call it karvatti. And what is a karvatti? Karvatti is the saw of the the ari, the cutter, which has a jagged tooth. That is a karvatti, and that karvatti border today has become your your temple border, because it's supposed to look like temples. It's not. So you have those. Karvatti is something that was a very Marathi element, and that's the thing about the Marathi element of design, that it derives itself from the so-called tradie influence, because they did rise and they did become a community which started looking at royalty for the first time. Earlier they did have royalty, but you don't have too many reference post the Badami Empire, which is about the 10th century. So there's been a period where they were sort of controlled by all over. The other thing that is there is that a lot of people forget that outside of Pune you have weather which is very harsh. Dakkini weather is harsh. As a result, there is a focus when we see in their clothing on brightness, just to be able to contrast to the harshness that they faced in daily life. Typically, there were three kinds of fabrics. There was cotton, which came from the cotton growing belt. There was silk, because there was the influence of silk that came in from the ruling class. And then the third was that they did have the mixed fabric, and that's where the Khana fabric comes in. If you see it, silk cotton is a very known thing in the Marathi textile thing. So, your Ilkal saris, for example, they are only silk cotton. It's only now that they have started getting into simply silk, because there is a... Yeah, so Irkal is these are Dharwad saris. These are Khuna saris. Yeah. So this is where Irkal you already see a silk cotton, because there is already the focus that is there on cotton. At its peak reigning period, you had about 900 families of various kinds doing weaving and looking into how to develop and be able to supply. The demand was very high. Ironically, now most of them have moved to other areas. So whether it is Ichal Kalanji, whether it is Vidarbha right now, whether it's Bedgam, whether it is Mysore, they've all moved back out again for various reasons. but basically they've carried back these traditions, and they've moved back because they also came from outside. They were settled in initially, they developed a local culture, and by the time that is, the patrons continue to be there. The second hallmark of any Puneri cultural symbol, if I may say, whether you're looking at sari, everyday cultural symbol, is the fact that, like all very able administrators, Puneris are price conscious. It doesn't matter how much it is. Price consciousness is a hallmark of a Puneri customer. And this is not just recorded now, it has been recorded way back in the 1700, 1800. All over, there's always the crib that the Puneri customer will demand maximum value for the buck. And that's perhaps why silk cotton also emerges in that sense. Then there is, because we were talking about Himru and Mashru, it is important to look at the Shaila. Now, remember, these were agrarian roots. Because they were such agrarian roots, when they came in, what do you do in an agricultural area is you typically have a head cloth which will cover you, and you sort of sling it over. So once they come into an urban situation, both the men and the women wore a stole, and the stole was known as the Shaila. And this Shaila was basically, the richer you were, the more glamorous the Shaila was. In terms of what men wore, men typically wore dhotis. They still continue to wear that. Where a bigger symbol is the headgear. The headgear was also, in certain senses, used to denote economic class, caste, and other things. It is contentious. As late as 10 years ago, there was a massive halbal that took place because somebody wore some kind of a pagad, which was supposed to be not of that caste and of the other caste. I'm not getting into the details, but typically it was that, how did you wear that? Because it was a sign of where you came from, whether you are of a particular, and there is a lot of differentiation, because it was not only about being a Brahmin or a Kshatriya. It is because you have Brahmins, but the others are all various subcategories and permutations that are there. So as a result, there's a lot of pride that is taken, and you wear it in a particular way. Now this also reflects itself in what is known as a Nawari. Now we call it a Nawari, but in that sense, it's a Kashta way of wearing a sari. It's referred to the Kashta way. What is a Kashta way? Kashta way means that you will take one end of the sari and tuck it at the bottom, at behind, so that you have ease of movement. Now this has been portrayed by various people as saying that's because Marathi women were, they were out there in the field and things like that. All of that was there. But the reason it is called a Nawari is because it's a 9-yard. Again, this is a north-south difference, because today, as we understand, most of us wear the Nivi pattern sari. The Nivi is the front palla. Everybody started wearing it, but in India at any point in time, there are over 700 ways of wearing a sari. The Kashta way is one way wherein you tuck in so that you have mobility that's there. The second thing about the Kashta way is that you don't need a petticoat, and therefore you cut out on cost. Now the interesting part is that here again you have caste denominations that are very visible. I know Maushami would not agree. A lot of the modern Puneris who have been brought up on Gandhian and other educational philosophies are like, well, it doesn't matter. But the fact remains that you saw the you could make out a Brahmin woman by the Brahmani Nawari, which had nothing more than just a pocket, right? An additional pocket that was there. And so this is, yeah,
yes,
and
this tucking, this one is very important.
Yeah, so this is the Deccan, the Jija Mata, right? This is the Peshwai, yeah. And then this is the Peshwai. The Peshwai is known for its dual border.
It's like this.
Yeah, so it shows you. So they basically, it was their way of being able to indicate. Now the Peshwai pattern was something that was much more common to the Chitpavan as opposed to the Deshar Brahmins as they are called. The Chitpavans versus the Deshar that is there. Then there are various permutations that come in. For example, I know that right now there is also a Mastani Nawari that is out, which is after the movie Mastani. So, it just depends on how one was worn. But between the Peshwai, which one was that? The Peshwai and the Brahmani, and the third was the Deshantar, which is what people wore in the interiors, and those would be right up to your knees, basically like labor class. The other interesting facet that I discovered, the Kolis, yeah.
Koli is different again.
Mainly the
Farming community wears that.
Yeah,
Because they need to, because
they have to get into rice fields.
Inconvenient.
Yeah.
So.
Now, but the other interesting part is that when I was doing my research, one of the things I wanted to learn outside of YouTube is to learn from one of the salespeople as to how to wear a nawari. So just take the sari, it's a 9-yard sari, use it, right? And I went from shop to shop. It was Maushami who told me that no, you will not find it anywhere. I said, no, let me find out. So I went to every shop, not a single salesperson in the old Pune region, not a single salesperson in the new Pune region, no shopkeeper today has a person who's trained to wear a nawari or teach you how to wear a nawari, because everyone just gets them stitched. Which is to say that they've become the kimonos. Because you have forgotten the art of being able to drape. What was a unilateral single piece of cloth today is a stitched piece of cloth. Now again, markedly that is not what is supposed to happen, because if you look at the sacramental values of Hinduism, you're supposed to wear unstitched cloth. So stitched cloth itself is against the ethos of what is supposed to be a part of the religion. So this is where it comes in. A little word about my favorite cloth called khuna. Khuna. Khana, khuna.
Yeah.
This again is so classically Marathi Dharwad in that sense, because this is actually outside of the pakar, these kind of things. It's actually used as blouse material or a garment material which can be worn by a lot of saris. The reason for this is that the weave, just feel the weave, because it's the only surviving form in that sense of the silk, cotton, brocade, mashru, himru school. It has the comfort of cotton, but it has the look of silk. And what has happened is that it is now getting back into vogue because it actually lends itself very beautifully to everything Indian. It's a speciality that's there in and around Pune and Belgaum area. You actually can't find it. In Bombay and other places, you have to go for specific shops. But in every other place, while you can find the Kanjivaram right at Srinagar, you cannot find the Khana fabric even in Delhi. And if you start looking for it, it is difficult. So the Khana actually is about, how they were able to incorporate for elements of heat. The Khana also as a pattern has often followed, can you just show me the red one? No, this is pink. Yes, please.
You want me to take?
Uske upar wala, sorry.
सगळेच ते काढून मध्ये त्यांना
Yeah, this is damn good for Bharatanatyam, no?
Yeah. So it incorporates, you will not be able to find any non-oriental colors. You can't find dull colors in Khana. And that's a part of the fact that it has not been influenced by anything. Also, since we are on the Khana, I also wanted to give you a bit about what is known as the Tanchui. Everybody is aware of the Tanchui pattern? Yeah? So Tanchui is a kind of sari, a brocade sari, which is today available in Varanasi. Tanchui owes its origin between Pune and Surat. Pune, because there was an a Parsi trader, Gigi Boy. And it was, they were all into the triangular opium trade, which is to say that Parsi traders along with the Brits went from the west coast carrying opium from the east coast to China. In return, they bought back Chinese silk. So they would take their ships, right? They were the agents that were there. And when they brought back the silks were very popular in Pune, they were very popular in Mumbai. And everybody wanted Chinese brocade. So the Parsi Bawa said, boss, make in India here and let's get our boys to learn. So he sends 3 Joshi brothers and they go there and they learn. Okay, so 3 means Tan in Chinese is 3. Okay, and Choi was their master. So they started calling it Tanchui. And they started weaving. Their first factory was set up in Surat. And they record, if you look at, though it's now almost died out, they record that Pune was a significant market for Tanchui, because Tanchui lent itself very well. And in that sense, the Khuna also took in elements of the Tanchui. Later, it adapted itself. So when you see this sort of a self weave on weave where there is a color pattern flow which is known as Dhuk Chhau, that is a pattern that has come in because there's an argument whether the Tanchui gives it to the Khuna or the Khuna gives it to the Tanchui. But the Tanchui typically follows. Tanchui is died out now in the west coast. It is now only present in Varanasi, though it's much heavier. So that's pretty much about it from here in terms of textiles. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them right now. In terms of, would you like to dive in a little more into design? Would you like to get into a little more into what is happening? And I think also,
What is the...
Maushami had put out the jewelry. It might
the
be...
headgear also, I'll get it here. Earlier that you were talking about.
The fern was initially made in
What is the
cotton,
length
right?
of
It was
this? Is
pure
material,
cotton.
is it? It's not a
Sorry?
The fern was initially made in
material.
cotton, right? Then it became cotton silk blends.
The khad has always been a cotton silk blend. In fact, cotton doesn't lend itself. Yes.
This is
हाँ, so
Puneri
we
Pagdi.
Puneri Pagdi. Maushami, we're doing that at the Zandewala. I don't want to be covering it here because then he has a lot of this thing. We'll cover this. Okay, for this I'm going to pretty much leave Maushami to do the explaining because I'm quite zero at jewelry.
So this is just the traditional Maharashtrian jewelry. This is called the Kolhapuri saz. This is the thushi. Thushi comes in various patterns, like this is a Mangalsutra thushi. This is a Chinsapeti, and this is the nath what Talish is wearing. So that comes in different patterns, and this is a bugdi. One like big bari पण नाही तुम्हाला bugdi worn by women. No, it is worn here by women over the years. Okay, and then there's this that is worn by men. You might have seen in that Bajirao Mastani or any Maharashtrian themed movies. This is worn by men on the ear, on the right, big bag. So this is
Back then, more
Big
were
bag.
not supposed to be pearls because these things were not available, right? So
Pearls?
the
No,
things
pearl.
will have
Pearl
been
in India has, from the time of the Vedic period, pearl was mined in India, and pearl has been pretty much, especially for things like this. Pearl, the Marathas did have a stake in pearl farming. It is recorded for the Angariyas in there. So while pearl was very rare because it was not cultured pearl, so you had divers going in, but Indian West Coast definitely had pearls.
No, but was it affordable for the commoners or the farmers to have?
That's why you had
This
the-
is very costly item.
That's why you had gold
Only the
pearls.
rich persons, like Peshwa, then there's Sardars, and all that way.
this is the Peshwa dress that we keep
For the boys?
Barabandi.
to wear over a dhoti. And this is the Upparna that she was talking about for the men, like the Shela.
Shela for the women.
Can you just hold that? Yes, sure. Which one? This.
Huh. You want to come this side?
Yeah, I think that might be the
Yeah, you can take pictures here. Whatever you want.
ते थोडंसं असं उभं धरलं ना तर
हो,
म्हणजे
चालेल ना, चालेल. हो, हो, बोललो.
इथे जरा धरायला पाहिजे म्हणजे मला
बाहेर
काही-
येऊ का? बाहेर येते. तुम्हाला जे जे पाहिजे ना त्याचा फोटो तुम्ही काढू शकता.
नाही, खाली धरलं पाहिजे पण याच्यामध्ये त्याला असं धरा, इथे धरा, इथे असे धरा. हा हा, एक मिनिट असं धरा, ह्याच्यावरती हे धरा, एक मिनिट.
This is the pancha.
The khadi patta.
And you see the weave is different from the power loom weaves, but it is not completely handloom.
Can you explain? I mean, I'm zero.
It is a semi-handloom. That's why you see the weave a little bit. See?
It has a little gap.
It's not a smooth one.
Yeah, and it
it's
has a
having
gap.
that tough thing.
And
It
the
just
thread count of this will be very low as opposed to the power loom. But
It's great for bath, right?
yes,
Because it will
yes,
just-
and it is
in a summer
it
place.
becomes very soft and it is very absorbent, much more
Is
absorbent.
it also sort of used just by men as a
Yes.
gamcha?
Yes,
or
gamcha.
something?
this
Yes.
is also used for when we have a bath, no?
Right.
So post
No,
bath
it
we
comes,
use it as a towel.
it comes from a size of square handkerchief to a 9-meter dhoti.
Okay.
But this store when it started, I think पूर्ण खादीच असेल ना हे जेव्हा
पूर्ण
चालू झालं.
पूर्वी फक्त पंचे, धोतर आणि ताग्यातनं कापड असं होतं 1921 साली. आणि
आणि
त्याच्यानंतर-
मोठे पंचे आपण अंगाला पण तसे दिसायचो
हो,
धोत्रासारखे.
ते आहेत अजून आणि वापरणारे लोक पण आहेत.
पूजा पाठ करणारे लोक वापरतात.
वापरतात